Hey, how's it going? I am here today with the Center Hub basketball YouTube channel. I am talking to Coach Jon Coffman of Purdue Fort Wayne. Hey, Coach Coffman, how's it going?
It's good. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure. Obviously, for those that have been paying attention, you may have noticed that we've been interviewing a lot of Division One basketball coaches this year in preparation for our magazine. This is one of those interviews, but also I'm just excited to talk to Coach Kaufman. There's a lot of moving pieces in college basketball these days. Coaches are moving around, players are moving around. Not you. You've been, at Purdue Fort Wayne since 2014, if I'm mistaken. Uh,
15 years. I've
15.
been here, 12 as the head coach. And yeah, consistency. I think that there's a lot of value in that in our marketplace right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, kind of touched on it a little bit. And I kind of want to just, segue right into talking about the roster this season. Um, Commonly, especially at a, mid-major level program, you're going to see a lot of, D1 transfers, JUCO transfers. And again, you guys are kind of, bucking some trends. You got two Division One transfers that I noticed when I kind of scanned the roster and was doing my deep dives. A handful of returners, and a good group of freshmen. You want to start with kind of the guys that are coming into the program, and then we can talk about some of your guys that are staying with.
Yeah, no, I mean we can kind of dive into the roster for sure. And so kind of coming off of the spring, and what I've been very proud of in our program is we've been as good as any place in the country in retention. Over my 12 years as a head coach, and this year, and I never judged negatively on people who had roster movement, but I was very proud of what we had done on our roster. And then just with how college basketball has transformed a little bit. We graduated three really, really good players. Our three starting guards. One of them still had a year left. The other two are playing pro ball right now. And so, that obviously hurt, like a lot of people feel. And then we lost our center who had a year left as well. And so that put us into the portal when we hadn't really been in that space in past years for not necessarily impact players. That's incorrect. I mean, we had used it in that regard, but losing some of your all league caliber players, and so transformation for me. And I thought our coaching staff, my assistants, and I got Ryan Sims been with me for 15 years. Mike Wolf for 7, Adam Blaylock for 8. I've been here for 15, 12 as the head coaches. That consistency, know what wins, know how we play. We have a style. We recruit to that style. We're number 14 in scoring over the last decade. We're number 2 in 3-point field goals made over the last decade, 7 3-point field goal percentage. So, like, there's all these stats and stylistic things that we do. So, I got a group that really knows what we're looking for. And what I learned over these 12 years is that, you know, if I'm just very open in recruiting and don't oversteer it to sell to convince them to come to Fort Wayne and steer it too much towards them. If I just sell who we are, what we do, and tell the stories of past players, those that buy what we're selling, they're going to be happy, they're going to be retained. And we've been really good at that the last 6, 7, 8 years. All right. And that's what we did this summer, looking for impactful guys. And so we have 10 newcomers. And ironically, that number sounds really big, but I thought we did an excellent job of retaining some experienced guys. We have 5 guys returning. So of those 10, 8 are scholarship guys. We're the only team in the league that have 2 of our top 6 scorers returning, even though we lost some impactful guys to the portal. Like we did really good.
Mhm.
CJ Adnott, Max Nelson, like those guys impact winning and played a lot of minutes for the Dons. As we looked at some of the newcomers, I'd be remiss if I don't talk about some of the guys, D'Lo and Chris Morgan, who like they're due. It's their time. They've had some injuries during their time here. Both of them are 4-year players. That in college basketball today, they both have 1 to 2 more years left. So they're going to be those 6, 7, 8-year guys in college basketball during time, but they got experience doing what we do. And then I got a redshirt freshman, Mason Trout. So I have a really good group coming back. Now, in terms of the guys coming in, we're always going to recruit freshmen. We've had a lot of success with that. You look at John Contras in the NBA. He was a freshman. We redshirted him, put on 42 pounds of muscle. You look at Jared Godfrey, all-time leading scorer. He's again another freshman. So we did that again this year. Um, and so you have EJ Mosley out of Chicago. I mean, he has really, really showed out this preseason. And is going to impact winning on the floor. Arguably one of the best point guards out of all of Illinois last year, and definitely Chicago. And has done well. And then Quentin Morgan, another freshman, who we found at the NCAA Academy 2 years ago from Richmond, Virginia. And so like really talented freshmen. Now that's an area that we've got added some depth, and we're probably longer and bigger than we have been in past years. Like 2 years ago, we won 23 games after graduating, five of our top six scores from that championship group, that regular season championship group.
Hmm.
And they came back, they won 23 games. And we started 6-1, 5-8, 6-1, 6-4, and then had 6-9. And this year we're going to be able to put some 6-8, 6-9s that can, you know, handle the basketball, and they could really be 3-4s or 5s. And I think defensively that's going to really help us. So then that kind of moves into when we look at some of the transfers that are coming in. I don't know if you call, Yuval Levin a transfer. Talking to other coaches in the league, have you delved in some good international players?
I don't know. I don't think he's somebody that would qualify as a transfer. You
Well,
know,
and he's not. He's transferring from professional basketball.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
and that's the thing is, I think it's definitely a case by case basis when you're talking about some of these guys that are 23, 24, have played, maybe 2 or 3 years, Division 1 pro ball. And it's not that maybe they were a starter or anything like that, because I don't think even Kentucky and some of these bigger programs aren't even able to draw away some of these guys, premier young players, because the money's just so good still overseas. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. I'm curious what you think about all these teams trying to dip overseas. I mean, I've seen, in years past, I think you guys have had a couple of notable European players here and there. But some rosters now are just fully buying in. 5, 6 guys that have played European Pro Ball. I want you to
yeah,
answer
but
this question,
yeah, I
but
mean, you look at Robert Moore.
I want to
You look at
grab
Robert Morris last year,
I
and
want
they
to
did.
grab a charger quick. One sec.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Coach. I'm all good.
That's right.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
don't
was,
edit that now. I
yeah,
want that on the YouTube. No, that's real life.
yeah,
Hey,
yeah, 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 yeah. I'll keep it. I'll keep it. I'll keep it.
Hey, now listen, Caleb, in college basketball, like we're building the plane while we're flying the plane. So like that's a great analogy right there. You got to go get the charger.
Yeah,
Like
I
like
loved
keep
it.
keep keep this podcast going. But
I
going
love,
back to the guys, like, and I'll talk a little bit about Yuval. Great story. You're going to see a huge influx over the next 2-3 years in international players. Obviously, you just look back at last year, and what Robert Morris did with their international, their Spanish center, who was really really good, and he got even better from year one to year two. I mean,
mhm.
tremendously better. But Yuval, cool story with him is that you now have with agents in the system. John Conchar, who plays for the Grizzlies, like his agent has been a good friend for a long time, and now impacting us with giving us some good leads. And Yuval's cool story. He was rookie of the year in first division, Israel,
Mhm.
and played on a national team with under 20 national team with Danny Wolf and Ron Zipper, who's at LSU now.
Ben Suraf, I think, is
Omar
on that team
Mater
too.
is at Purdue. I'm sorry.
I think Ben Suraf is on that team too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Good team, and you're looking at really good players in that first division, and you're playing against men. And he's already served 2.5 years in the Israeli army, and played 2 years, after that. And so he's a guy that's going to come in having played against men and hopefully impact, winning early in his career. Good player, really knows how to play the game.
Mhm.
And then as you go into the transfers, another one that is kind of a cool story is Ibrahim Kaba, from New Jersey, transferred in from St. Bonaventure, and you're going to see a lot of this too. Like he went and redshirted at St. Bonaventure, and I mean he had a ton of Power Four offers out of high school, and chose to go to St. Bonaventure Atlantic 10, really good league, not in the Power Four, but really good league.
Mhm.
And then just they brought in some upperclassmen ahead of him and some transfers. And so he redshirted. And so now to kind of jumpstart his career. And again, John's agent assisted there, like just connecting us and great fit. And so he's 6'9" and skill. Both of those guys, like they're kind of 3, 4, 5s,
Guys.
how they play the game, shoot the basketball skill. And like if you can add a skilled five, and neither of them are 5 men. But like if you can play that way and they can defend their position, it's really, really interesting. So that's one. So he's a redshirt freshman. So we gained some value in youth, but having redshirted and having a year of college experience there. Um,
Yeah.
and
And I mean, looking up and down the roster, you keep noting. I mean, really to paint the picture for people, I think you guys got one, two, um, three, four, five, six guys that are, 6'8" or bigger, and that's a good strong rotation and a lot of depth. I think it's something that not a ton of teams in the Horizon League. As I've looked across and kind of dug in with this being my conference, it's not something that a lot of teams in the Horizon League can boast. And then you note about it, some of these guys can even stretch the floor a little bit, put the ball on the floor and make a read. And that's good stuff to see. A lot of versatility.
yeah, and we can go small like we have in past years too.
Yep.
I like what we did, transfer portal with some of our guard players. Well, Mikhail Stevenson, from Fort Wayne, transferred from Grambling. Really, really good passer. We'll be able to play just like last year, spots where we'll have, 3 point guards on the floor at a time. That was always really hard to guard. You'd have to put your 3 man on Jalen Jackson, because you couldn't put a 3 man on Quentin Morgan Roberts, and you couldn't put a 3 man on Rasheed Bello, and so same thing. And then you look at DeAndre Craig, from Denver, double-digit score from Denver, coming in and really, really shoots the basketball. I love where we've gone with that, but then also depth. It's my first time taking a transfer in league. Milwaukee's been really good in the league as well. Got a lot of respect there. And Darius Duffy. I never thought that we would lose the the number one field goal percentage player in the country in
Mhm.
Eric Mulder, and then gain a player that had a higher field goal percentage, with Darius Duffy, who shot 80%. Eric was at 78, just didn't have the volume to be in the national rankings. And, he's going to be a physical five. And so, sort of some, we can go really physical rim protector to not necessarily smaller, but a little bit more skill, stretch, four-ish type player out there. As we add some versatility in there. And then we also added, we've been really good at Division II guys, Rasheed Bello, Anthony Roberts, both all league caliber guys in the Horizon League. And Ja'Cory Lipkins came. He was freshman of the year at Charleston in West Virginia. Can really shoot it lefty. He's got some years too. Back when we signed Nelson and Jalen Jackson, we found value in signing, transfer sophomores that had showed impactful freshman years. And so we're just looking for value, like everybody else. And we feel like being intentional, which is what we've learned over, 12 years with our staff. And we went into recruiting that way and really like the group. The other piece is my wife walked around team camp first week that the guys have been here, spends, 20, 30 minutes walking around the different scores tables, hanging out with the guys, and was like, man, John, like these guys, it's like we've always had. I like, yeah, we haven't changed our culture with the personalities. And then I was out of town recruiting first time we did one of our golf lessons over at the country club, and my wife and daughter went out there to kind of hang out with some other donors, watching them hit balls and do the golf lesson, their life skills stuff. And she said this may be, the best charismatic, you know, overall roster that you've had. And that leads to winning. I mean, guys that enjoy, guys that can command a crowd, guys that enjoying the process like that, that's really cool.
I mean, and that's stuff that I can personally relate to right now, coaching younger kids is, when you see a group that plays the game, and then they love playing with each other, those are two different things. You know what I mean? And they're not mutually exclusive to each other either. And it can be often found together. Because and I mean, I'm sure I mean, you're the winningest coach in, program history, so I'm sure if a group is going to be on the right track, especially at this point in the season. Um, what are before we kind of move into maybe some more general quick hitters, what are kind of your expectations for this group? Say, a month into the season, what does a good season look like, and what does a bad season look like, and how would you attack that?
Well, I like our group because I think we have a really high floor because of versatility. And going through a college basketball season like last year, we lose Eric Mulder for the month
Mhm.
of January, and that puts some stress on you. And then we lost Jalen Jackson last year for our ESPN game against Cleveland State when, there were five teams in that last weekend going between
Mhm.
first and fifth. I mean, that impacts you. So having some depth, I like where we're at with that. But this is the unknown. I have no idea what the rest of the league. That's why I asked you a couple questions about international players. I have no idea. And then we're all doing what I'm doing. Like you can't really rate the guys coming in right now because a lot of them,
Mhm.
maybe it's a power four guy that, wasn't getting minutes. And so who knows where they're going to translate in the Horizon League, or it might be a Division two guy, and it's hard to gauge that, or high school guys or redshirt. So it's really hard to gauge where we're at. Just like last year, we were a preseason pick along with Milwaukee and had done a phenomenal job retaining, and then some other schools go out and with large sums of money, put together nice rosters, do a good job. Our league is packed with really good coaches and programs that are aggressive in the college basketball landscape. With our group, I think there's so much value to, tenure and consistency, and like the best indicator of future success is past success.
Mhm.
And so, for 12 years, I mean, we have more winning seasons in league play between Summit League and Horizon than anybody else in our league. And so I think, stacking, another winning season.
Yeah.
We've won the Summit League when we were in it. Second year in the Horizon League, won the regular season there. Like I expect this group to compete for our Horizon League title again this year. I think three of the last four last weekends of the year, there's been in the mix from first to sixth place going into that last weekend. I fully expect to be in that mix going last weekend.
Yeah.
And
I think
probably
you
going to
should.
be similar. It's probably going to be similar. Hey, last weekend, you win both and you might be first or second. All right, you lose both, you're probably at six. You split them, you might be four or five. And that's what it is. It's good basketball. And we want to get to Indy. That's a goal. Let's get ourselves to Indy with that and play from there. And I think we got a group. I'm hunting a leader. When you have some turnover, I do have some guys returning with some institutional knowledge. I really like that. I have some newcomers with some really good moxie and charismatic approach. But in terms of where that leadership comes, I got to see like a CJ Hadnot who put on 15 pounds. Like he is an absolute beast physically right now.
Really.
He's backing dudes up as he drives down the lane. And that's with having some older guys on my roster. But like it's his time. He's a junior. He's been in our program.
Mhm.
He was runner-up freshman of the year, he's runner-up six man of the year. Now coming in that position, like let's take that next step. And so I want to see him grow. The biggest difference though is that I felt uh, I felt college basketball and the increased expenses going along with it. I also felt universities where across the country, you're feeling the impact of really the smallest population going to college. I think it's like in the last 50 years. And so there's all of this retention budgets as you're going through everything. And that's tricky. And then you got costs of doing business for basketball and football going like this. And so we're playing more guaranteed games than we have in the past, which, hey, my players, man, they're gung ho. We've typically played 2 to 3 of those, and we've had some really good ones. I mean, we beat Indiana when they're ranked number 3 in the country,
Classic.
turned around the next year and beat them on the road by 20 with 17 threes, beat DePaul opening game 2 years ago with a totally new roster. So, like, we're excited, but man, those are big bodies. Those are, guys that have won college basketball and they're pulling guys from mid-major up. And so that'll be a huge challenge for us. And then it's
Hmm.
also, does that translate into winning? Like it's not a sustainable way for college basketball to play, 4, 5, 6 of those games.
I
You
think
got
it,
to
I
go to
think
the
it's
home
going to
stretch.
continue. I think it's going to continue to make, uh, the tournament the most interesting and complicated and unpredictable event in sports.
Now, do you mean
Because
you mean the Horizon League or the
I
NCAA?
think the NCAA tournament, but I think also even these conference tournaments can become very unpredictable because if let's say a team at the lower end of a conference, is one of the few teams in the conference that's comprised of a few key underclassmen. Let's say those underclassmen reach a level that they maybe weren't at because they have so much upside still, or maybe a guy tapped into some leadership role. It's his first year at a university, like some of these guys you're talking about. Redshirt freshmen, guys like that. I think you can see situations where those teams come back and get hot at the end of the year, and can carry its way. And then there's also the opposite, where a team that has expectations, has a lot of returning talent, and maybe it doesn't click until the end of the year, and then all of a sudden when it does click, it's better than it's ever been.
And
There's a lot of
I agree
different.
with that.
Yeah.
Like I think with the movement in our league, I think end of the year, like it's who gets better. Uh,
Hmm.
the concern is if you schedule as heavy as we did, I probably need to call Campy and get some advice on that. But when you schedule that heavy, it's like, okay, do your guys forget that they're winners, they can win, and as you play, like bodies and so forth. But hey, it's what we're gonna do. We're signed up. We're gonna go aggressively at it. My guys are juiced for our schedule. I also think you're right. College basketball is gonna be really interesting. Okay, because I think you're gonna see a movements back, and I know everybody says, oh, you're gonna lose any sort of parity, and the bigs are gonna take, and they may. But here's the thing: is money is not a motivator. Okay. And so it can get a guy to make a decision to go to a school. But like when you get into February and March, like coaches are going to be tripping over lower lips if guys aren't playing, and
Yeah,
that becomes
I'll
really
be
tricky.
interested. That's a great point. I'll be interested to see when the first $2 or $3 million guy doesn't return and what that looks like in terms of the conversations and the expressions are had. Because it used to be, rookies, NBA rookies, or, your first year overseas is that first experience where you have where it's like, yeah, I'm paid to be here. I'm valuable enough, at least in that extent. But if I don't do what they want, things are going to look very differently.
Yeah. And then
In
the other
truth,
difference,
and
if
then the,
guys,
the power of, the staff that's put in your place of like, I'm paying you. If you're not playing well, I'm not going to play you. And some of these different relationships where it used to be, the playing time is currency. And now real currency is involved. So it'll be interesting.
well, and I think there's so much value in the playing time, and you're going to see that. It just takes some
Mhm.
bad stories and some disappointing careers, and the adults in the room to share those with the young people making these decisions. We already saw it this year,
Mhm.
where there's players making decisions on playing times. Um,
Mhm.
and it might be, hey, that second contract is what you're playing towards, just like the NBA. But and that's where you're going to see some value of some guys going to different levels. But we're going to have good players, and the coaches in our league, they're really good, and they're going to figure out ways. And then guess what? There are good basketball players everywhere, guys you've never heard of. Nobody heard of John Conchar, and he ends up being a first team all league player as a redshirt freshman, and then he ends up being the first guy in the history of college basketball, scored 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds,
One of
506.
the greats. It was one of the things I was honestly I was gonna sneak it at the end, but you name dropped him so many times I can't even ask the question anymore. But I was gonna be like, oh, guys, did you know you coached John Conchar? Because that's one of my favorite shouts in terms of just NBA knowledge, NBA draft knowledge, and college basketball. Kind of all three mixed together. Because he had such, kind of a relevant career as an NBA role player, a symbol of consistency, what it means, kind of be prepared for opportunities. He's in that class of guys. And then, is the greatest example when I talk to, freshmen or sophomore college players who, maybe had a strong freshman year, and, are going into their sophomore year. If things don't shake out how they want to, like, second year going to the league or anything like that, don't forget, John Conchar was a full, used up his full eligibility. And still went to the league and did business. That's a great shout out. He's one of my definite favorite college basketball players of all time. I think I actually used his film in a YouTube video once, not on this channel, but on a previous channel in a breakdown. He's a great player.
It's amazing how many people just fell in love with his game too. I
Mhm.
I remember my AD down visiting family in Florida, and was watching something up on TV, and it may have even been like during our season. I can't remember the full story of how his name came up, but this gentleman sitting next to her at the bar didn't know she was the athletic director at Purdue Fort Wayne, and somehow John's name came up, and he was just a guy in Florida. And he's like, man, I love watching this kid. He's so much fun to watch, and he just stuffs the stat line, and it's really cool. And he stayed really close to the program, like a lot of our guys. I think that's where, we differentiate ourselves here. Is that you just got, generations of guys that are pulling for what my staff, and they have a
Mhm.
direct connection to me. And I get to tell these stories of what we've done, with our resources at our university, not what I was doing at another university. When I talk about the 26 guys that have signed pro contracts, that's at Purdue Fort Wayne. That's, working out in the Gates Center every day, and that's doing what we do and playing our style. So, that's been cool to watch. And that's where I feel like we're in a really good space moving forward. And if I've been barnstorming Fort Wayne, as we, raise NIL and fan raise, I get to tell all these stories over a decade, and this consistency and these stories of young men doing great things. And, we've partnered with businesses and individuals, do community service on their behalf. It's a big part of our NIL and our collective in Donsville, Fort Wayne. And it's been awesome. We did 400 hours at Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Renaissance YMCA last summer. It's been really impactful on our city as youth mentors, and so there's really good things happening in our city with our college basketball's transformed.
That's awesome. And I mean it's good to hear always, and I'm sure, people in your community always want to hear about them. But I think it's not something that's always like a huge focus of a program, especially these days, at these Division 1 programs just about winning. I mean, winning's going to bring the people, but I think these smaller programs where there's going to be player turnover and on the teams around you there's going to be coach turnover. I think it's really cool to see you've kind of entrenched yourself in the community, and obviously within the program you didn't really have to entrench yourself. Your success has spoken for itself. Um,
Yeah, and
I
that's where
think
process is critical.
yeah.
And every coach will talk process.
Mhm.
Like it's a little bit of a cliche, focus on the process. But the key to success is relationships, investing in your people. And that's how you get consistent. So there's people that, they may be chasing outcomes, and that's not guaranteed you're not going to have success doing that, but it's guaranteed you're not going to have long-term success if
Mhm.
you're not focusing on the process. Because you're going to have some failure along the way. You're going to have some speed bumps. And so how do you manage that adversity? And you do that through your relationships. And that's where you got to invest in the full person. And that's where I got so much confidence that, we're going to be at the top of the league again this year and competing. And that's the space you want to be in. Like winning a tournament, a Horizon League tournament, like that's a bear.
Mhm.
I actually think it's harder to win regular seasons. That's over the course of an entire year. We've done that twice. That's really, really hard. That shows who can really, weather the storm. There's a little bit of luck well, there's a little bit of luck in a regular season title too, but in 3 days, how do you manage that? And that's a bear. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's just getting hot, but you got to be in that space. You got to have the right roster, and you got to be in that space to be able to do that. And we've had roster after roster that I think have been good enough to do that. And I think we're again going to be in that space. And can we be playing with smiles on our face in February, March? Like 3 years ago, we didn't lose a game in February.
Hmm.
We had a great smile going down to Indianapolis, and then unfortunately got upset in the semis. Ball didn't go in, but man, we had a great shot at, it. And that's what you're hunting. And I think we'll
Hmm.
have that again.
Yeah, I
I'll
mean, you
tell
guys have
another
the guard.
story.
You have the guard play for it. You have
Yeah,
the
and I'll tell
guard play
another
to be
story. And
there.
this is where, maybe people aren't talking about this, but like, man, if you want to talk about, everybody talks about some of the negatives of what's going on in college basketball and stuff. I will completely disagree with them. All right. And what I'll tell you is like every time some rules change, you'll have people throw up their arms and be like, what are we doing? And they're exhausted and they're ruining stuff. And like, yeah, some things are different. And the cliche sort of analogy is, hey, Blockbuster card 20 years ago, you pull it out, with your Costanza wallet, and then you had Redbox, and now you got Netflix, and now you got all these different, like, yeah, the world changes. Businessman, hey, tax code changes. You got to adjust and flow. And what happened 3 years ago when they changed the NIL rules, the first thing that came to me, all right, was I've been trying to get my players graduation suits. So the day I graduated from college, and I worked in finance right after college in San Francisco. All right. So the day I graduated from college, my dad bought me a suit. All right, and gave me $500. Said, "Hey, good luck with life. All right, go attack it." Now he would have helped me out. Like everybody's parents down the road, but it was kind of a cool sort of, hey, you got a suit, go interview. Okay, I've been trying, but there was no way to do these suits, and I had our suit guy who suits up custom suits for my whole staff. Um, and the day this happened, I've been trying to do it as awards and things, and couldn't do it because these suits are a couple $1,000s. Like it was like a $3,000 suit, these
Yeah.
Magnani $800. Like it was a big time setup, but we couldn't find space in the old rules. Well, then NIL happens and we switch it. All my guys get custom suits. So they walk across graduation, custom suits, and now they got an interview suit, wedding suit, awesome. Awesome, right?
That's awesome.
But then even cooler than that, all right, is that 3 years ago, okay, like you couldn't go out to eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner and have one of our season ticket holders, boosters, talk to our players about what they want to do in life after basketball. How crazy is that? That's college. We were handcuffing them to not be able to fully network.
Yeah.
So now we start a community mentor program. So every player 3 years ago has a mentor, and once a month they get together with that mentor for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and they bring one more person from the university, and then we teach them the skills of networking, dining etiquette, things like that, how to research who they're networking, and then how to follow up. And so the goal is every player is going to have 8 to 12 network people, and so now they're going to help learn how to or have the skills in the network to when they get done playing pro ball. All right, skip the first job to get the second job. Get the job receiving the coffee, not serving the coffee. All right, and so that's cool. Then year three, we now have so many people in our community, and these are really impactful, influencing people. They've made a lot of money in life, and then some just straight influencers. All right, and community service type people. And we'll have each player has 3 to 4 mentors now. They have a team.
Yeah.
So this is an army of our city investing in these young people, and they've now used it as a network. And so
Wow.
now that's really helping to compound our NIL raising, our fan raising. our development. There's just cool things happening. And that's all, I would not have been able to do that if I hadn't been here for 15 years. So you can only imagine Campion League. He's got 40 years. All right. He's probably really cranking. If I'm cranking, he's really cranking. So again, I got some good competition in the league.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that's a good spot to end it. It's a really interesting point that I don't think a lot of people have made, and I don't even know if people are really talking about is kind of taking away the shackles of the restrictions that you're placing on players in terms of how much upward mobility we were giving them into society as student athletes. And,
No, you got to shrink the margins. Like there's
yeah.
going to be a margin. I like to pay players, but I'm never going to be able to buy a player.
I think it's
There's
gonna
always going
be
to be
it's gonna be
somebody who's
all
going to have
about
to.
who can balance it the best. Like with
Yep,
anything,
margins.
it's gonna be all about who can balance. Coach, this was great. Thank you so much for your time. I think everybody knows where to find you this season. You're gonna be on the court. And I'm looking forward to watching some games. I mean, Horizon League's always a place that I go. I'm a Green Bay and Milwaukee guy coming from Wisconsin. But
Cool.
I'll be rooting for you. I'll be rooting for you this year.
Hey, we got two good Green Bay boys, Chris
Yep, yep,
Morgan, Max Nelson.
yep.
Two good. So right there, and then we got a
Appleton, not far from my family. Yep.
yep, and then you got Mikhail Stevenson played junior college ball in Milwaukee, and then Darius Duffy you've seen
Yep.
close. So yep, we got a
Yep.
lot of connections.
Yep.
Expect you to be a fan this year.
Yep. I will. I will. I'll definitely be a fan this year.
All right,
Thank you again, Coach.
sounds good. Thanks, Caleb. Take care. See you, man.
Yep. Bye.